Ready.
Or wait a minute, I guess we really need to have Brian, don't we? Is Brian here yet?
He's not.
No. We'll wait for Brian.
There he is.
Hello, this is Brian.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Call the meeting to order. And Brian, you want to run us through the teleconference procedures?
Yes, sir. Happy to, Roland. This is Brian Yates with Schwartz, Page and Harding, and welcome everybody to the Montgomery County MUD number 67 Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, May the 19th, 2021. As in prior meetings, I will briefly go through the remote meeting procedures and perform a roll call. So to begin with, need to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we will continue the practice of having a roll call to vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely this afternoon so that we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I'll perform a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name or your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with the roll call for our board of directors, Roland Johnson.
Present.
Larry Copeland.
Present.
Alan Fitchke.
Present.
Paul Martin.
Present.
Alton Wicker.
Present.
That completes the roll call for our directors. We do have a full quorum present. So we'll move on now to Woodlands Water staff. Jim Stinson.
Present.
Mike Mooney.
I'm here.
Jeannie Scott.
Present.
Maureen Bourgeois.
I'm here.
Shelley Lawson Kennedy.
Here.
Any other Woodlands Water representatives in the meeting? Okay, we'll move on to San Jacinto River Authority staff. Ron Kelly.
Present.
Ed Shackelford.
Present.
Chris Meeks.
Present.
Matt Corley.
Present.
Anyone else from the River Authority in the meeting?
Hello again, Brian. This is Amanda Murray.
Okay, anyone else from the River Authority in the meeting?
Yes, Brian, Joy Homewood with the River Authority again as well.
All right, anyone else from the River Authority? All right, we will move on then to district consultants. Do we have any MUD 67 consultants in the meeting?
Adam Cohen with Baird is on, Brian.
Okay. Any other MUD 67 consultants? All right, we will move on to developer representatives. Do we have a developer representative in the meeting today?
Yes, you do. This is Dan Kokwarth with the Howard Hughes Corporation. Good to see you guys again. I'm just stopping in. I don't have anything specific to discuss with you guys, but as we said, I drop in on occasion, and if you have any questions about the development in the Woodlands, I'd be happy to answer those questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to be on for a few minutes, and then I'm going to have to leave for a 3:30 meeting. But just good to see you guys. Thank you for your service.
This is Brian. We'll now move on to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public present in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well.
You have Kevin Garrity here from ExxonMobil.
Laurel Porto with ExxonMobil.
Russell with ExxonMobil.
Okay, this is Brian. Any other members of the public present in the meeting? Maureen, does that cover everybody who appears to be logged in?
That does.
All right, that will complete our roll call. Roland, I'll hand it over to you to begin the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Since we have no members of the public present, we can dispense with number 2. So number 3, consider an act on a request for adjustments to or relief from specific charges imposed by the district. Jeannie or Mike, do you have anything?
This is Jeannie and I don't have anything.
And this is Mike. I've got nothing this month either.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to consent agenda. Do any of the directors have any of the consent agenda items that they would like to be removed to discuss?
This is Director Martin. I've got questions on item 5 and item 6.
We'll remove 5 and 6, come back to those immediately following the approval of the consent agenda. And with that, do we have a motion to approve?
This is Alton. Go ahead, Al.
Okay. Alton moves. Do we have a second?
Alan, second.
Okay, Alan seconds it. We'll have a roll call vote. Alan,
Aye.
Alton,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Paul.
Aye, subject to the discussion.
Right. And this is rolling aye. So the 4 and 7 of the consent agenda is approved. We'll come back then to number 4, review and act on the minutes of the April 2021 Board of Directors meeting. Paul, did you have something you want to discuss on that?
Not on 4. I said item 5 and item 6.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so 4 and 7 have been approved. 5, review and act on the financial reports and disbursements of April 2021.
Yes, the first question, Maureen, is on page 7. On the balance sheet for the operating fund, the accounts receivable at the end of April of this year were $393,000. At the same period, or same time period last year, it was $263,000. So in other words, it's almost a 50% increase. So my question is, are we having payment issues or delinquency issues?
Hi, Paul, this is Maureen. I don't believe we are having any, but I would definitely have to take a closer look.
Yeah, it just seems awfully high. I mean, even with increasing water bills, that still seems very, very high.
Okay, I'll take a look and let you know.
All right, thank you. Page 9. On the debt service fund, the balance sheet again, on the liability, the bonds payable to SJRA and the bonds payable to the public, do those figures that are presented there represent September 30th of 20 or April 30th of 21?
September 30th.
The end of our fiscal year.
Yes, they're adjusted prior to running the trial balance.
Okay, but they haven't been adjusted for the March 21 payments to the bonds.
No, I do that at the end of the year. I guess I could do it during the year, but I have not been.
Okay, so these represent 9/30 in both cases.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Page 11, the capital projects. When and how do we liquidate that fund? And maybe, Brian, you need to make a comment here.
This is Brian. So those funds are remaining from your last new money bond issue. So in order to use those, you would have to comply with the TCEQ rules regarding the use of surplus construction funds. I know y'all have been through that drill before. But we would have to go through that process to see whether we could self-authorize or if we needed to go to, actually, I think, did these already get authorized for use on the AMI project? I thought that's what we
They
had
did.
these
They did.
allocated for.
But I left the small bank balance because I was told there may be another issue, so we just left the account open. I can reduce it smaller.
What do you mean another issue? What kind of issue?
I just checked to see if we needed to leave the capital projects fund open and the bank accounts, and I was told it would probably be a good idea.
This
Okay,
is
Brian,
Brian.
maybe-
So, yeah, so Paul, what I think Maureen's referring to is the possibility that in the future, the district could and likely will, if we move forward with this Texas Water Development Board project, would have a future bond issue. And so if you completely zero out the capital projects account, I mean, we could go lower than $9,800, but I mean, unless there's some minimum balance that the bank requires. But you don't want to completely shut out your capital projects fund, because then you got to open up and you got to turn right around and open up a new one when you have another bond issue. So
We already
that's the
have
reason
to.
for keeping the account. Yeah.
And bank fees, I'll leave a balance because bank fees will, monthly will debit out. of
Okay, so Maureen, is that the $9,800? Is that a level at which bank fees are zero
No, it's not.
or minimal?
I think the lower you go, the higher they are. Or
Okay,
analysis, it's calculated against the running balance.
okay. All right. Well, the main point is the upcoming bond issue. Okay, so I get that. All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, on item 5.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Do we have a motion then to approve item 5?
Allen, so moved.
And a second?
This is Larry, second.
Okay, we'll vote on it. Alan,
Aye.
Alton,
Aye.
Larry,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and this is Roland. Aye. Okay, number 5 is approved. Number 6, receive the tax collector's report, including update on the 2020 preliminary totals and delinquent roll. Paul, do you have something there?
Yes. First item is on page 16 of our package, which are the 2020 certified total versus 2021 preliminaries. And I guess my question is, of the 2021 preliminary total, do we know how much is being contested in terms of values?
No, I talked to Tony. This is Jeannie. I talked to Tony the other day. They have 29,000 protests throughout Montgomery County. He was not able at that point to tell me how many was in 67.
Okay.
And including the mail-in, that's only the ones online.
Okay. When do you expect more information on that issue?
I'm going to keep checking with him, about probably every other day, Paul, because he normally will give me updates on stuff like that. If once they separate it out and can pull which ones, per district.
Okay, if it looks like it's unusual or out of the ordinary compared to prior years, please advise us as soon as possible.
Yeah, what they've done is the increase is based on, they reevaluated commercial and some residential. So, and I don't know yet at this point if the commercial is if it's more commercial that's protesting or if it's a combination. He's also let me know that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 2, I'm going to refer to the insert now. I've got probably 3 or 4 more questions. On the insert, page 3.
Is it on the delinquent roll?
It's a government. Let's see. It's a delinquent. Yes. Payroll. Yep. That's the insert. Correct.
Okay. Okay. Do you have an account for me?
Yes. Yes. On page 3, the very first item, account P31672. Can you give us the status of that, recognizing that we may have ExxonMobil on the line here?
Let's see here. It's for the Hughes Landing. I know that we're making phone calls, Paul, now that well, this is personal property, so those notices went out for the attorney fees in April. So I know the attorneys are working on them. I'll have to get back with you on that account.
All right.
Note on this one.
All right. On further down on that same page 3, the second one from the bottom, it's account P372746. There's a code I there, and there's several years involved. Can you remind me what that I stands for?
Yeah, that's an intervention with the county. And this is 07 to 2010. This is probably going to be uncollectible, but we can't write it off or do anything because the suit is still active. And until it's not active, then we can't write it off. We will probably not collect this one.
All right. Page 4. About the fourth one down, it's R393843.
Okay, that is for 2612 Brightworks Place. Okay, they did get their May notice. She says she didn't get the homeowner said they didn't get the original bill. So this is a call I need to make. Call these people back to find out what's going on because we didn't get their bill back, but they have called, so we'll get it taken care of.
All right, good. And the next one would be right below it, 393856.
We've mailed out the bills. They have not come back. We have emailed them and they have not responded yet. So we'll be making phone calls on that one as well. Do you know anything about this account?
No, I don't. The ones I'm talking about are the ones with the bigger values on it.
Bigger values, yeah. And those are the ones we're picking out to call.
All right. And let's see. Last question is on on page 6, and it is account number R228116, number 2 down.
This is also one we've emailed and no response. So we'll be calling on this one as well.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I had. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments on financials? If not, we have a motion to approve.
This is Alton, so moved.
And do we have a second?
Allen, second.
Okay, we'll vote on it. Alan?
Aye.
Alton?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland. Aye. Okay, that takes care of the consent agenda items. The regular agenda items, received the San Jacinto River Authority report.
Good afternoon, directors. This is Matt Corley.
Hey, Matt.
You should have your monthly operations report. I think it starts on page 15 of your packet. Excuse me, page 17. Just like to highlight your surface water to groundwater blend ratio fiscal year to date. We're at a 48% groundwater blend to 52% surface water. Again, that's fiscal year to date, running from September 2020 to April 2021. Be happy to answer any questions regarding the report. If there are no questions, I know Mr. Kelling has an update regarding GMA 14.
Good afternoon, directors. Just a reminder that we're in the last stages of the DFC approval. GMA 14 issued the proposed DFCs. There's a 90-day comment period, which will end middle of July. Lone Star will be holding a public hearing on those DFCs, either the 7th, 8th, or 9th in June. I know you have something on your agenda to consider for resolution, but also we would like to encourage folks that sometimes a personal visit and your 3 minutes of fame and public comments may also have as much or more of an impact, because when they actually see faces talking to them about issues, sometimes it's more important and impactful than a stack of papers. So we would encourage you to consider actually both options. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have on that. Once we find out when the date of the public hearing is, we'll send that to Jim so he can forward to the rest of the directors. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ron. Any questions for Ron or any of the members of San Jack present?
Directors, this is Ed Shackelford with Sanctuary River Authority. Under the GM report, there is an item for the Trinity River water supply option that I want to call to your attention. We've made the presentation to the trustees, brought them up to date on the status of that contract. We have some, I'll say, some due diligence that would have to go into effect as of the end of this year and possibly go into a full-blown reservation contract by December of 2028. And we've asked the trustees, and we're asking each of the MUDs to offer input to the SGRA board by the 4th Thursday of August, advising them what your preference is on maintaining this water supply option contract. What we've advised to each of the MUDs so far is this water wouldn't come into effect or be put into use until 2050, but you have to reserve the water in advance. And it is when you see the numbers, it's a nominal impact to a customer's water bill. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions for Ed on this? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 9, receiving.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Larry.
may I suggest we move item 11 up to the next item?
Oh, yeah, we sure can. Good idea. And number 11 is receive update regarding the default of HL Champion Holding Company, LLC, and ExxonMobil Corporation tax abatement agreement, and authorize any action in connection therewith. Brian, you want to start the conversation on this?
This is Brian. Happy to, Roland. So y'all should have either in your packet or on the Google Drive, it looks like, let's see, 23 and 24. Yep. So on page 23 of your packet, you'll see the letter from ExxonMobil that does indicate that Exxon has moved the required minimum number of employees into the building that was out of compliance. This letter was provided, similar letters were provided to Montgomery County and to the road utility district, I believe the township as well, to indicate that they were back in compliance before the expiration of the default period. So there is no need at this time to proceed with termination of the tax abatement agreement. They have cured the default.
Okay.
This is Director Martin.
Go ahead, Paul.
So MUD 67 incurred some additional costs in investigating this apparent default. Is there any method or any way to recover our costs incurred to seek this resolution of the 30-day period?
This is Brian. There's not a provision related to that I can think of off the top of my head related to recovery of expenses to get a default cured. I can go back and look to double check, but one's not coming to mind offhand.
All right, thank you. I'd appreciate if you would look at that and see if there's some vehicle to accomplish that, because it wasn't our doing that caused that expense to be incurred.
This is Brian, understood. We'll double check on that.
Okay. Do any other directors have any comments, questions in this regard? Any comments from ExxonMobil?
No real comments. I mean, I think as mentioned, we've tried to attend the Montgomery County, Woodlands Township, Rutted Mud hearings to answer any questions, but we, feel we've resolved the issue and have cured the default. So just looking to move forward from there.
Okay, thank you. Brian, doesn't appear that we have any action to take then, correct?
This is Brian, that's correct, no action.
Okay, then we'll dispense with item number 11.
Okay, I think just for your procedures, if there's no more items for ExxonMobil, we'd like to just, for the recording and everything, say we're gonna drop off the call here for the rest of your agenda.
Sure. And thank you for attending to be prepared to answer any questions. Appreciate
No,
it.
thank you. No, thanks. Appreciate the time and thanks a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll move back to number 9. Receive and discuss the San Jac Woodlands Division budget.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Meeks, and I will be sharing my screen. Please let me know when you can see it. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So it is that time of the year when we do bring the proposed draft budget to everyone. And so what I do have in front of you today is the presentation itself. Before we get started, a few notes. The first is there's a package on the Google Drive, the Woodlands Division budget package, I believe it's called. And it has the PowerPoint and executive summary and then the line item budgets in there. This presentation is high level. What you'll see here in a minute, what we have done is we've basically flipped the presentation this year. So everything, you get the punchline at the beginning of it, and then how we came up with the numbers and just some general budgetary procedural items are back towards the end of it. So what I'll be doing is going through the first 3 or 4 slides that discusses basically the high level items. At that point, I'll ask if you'd like me to continue and go through the other items. If you do, I can go through that. If not, that's perfectly fine. One thing to note is the GRP division's fees have not been voted on by the GRP Review Committee. The GRP Review Committee will be voting on those items this coming Monday, May 24th. The GRP Review Committee also is looking to reduce the proposed rate. We had presented I think a 19-cent increase to the GRP Review Committee. Through discussions with the Review Committee, they're looking to reduce that by 4 cents. If the GRP Review Committee does vote to reduce that proposed increase from 19 cents to 15 cents, that does affect the Woodlands budget for the GRP rate. So the Woodlands Division will be issuing a revised Woodlands Division proposed budget after that decision has been made by the GRP Review Committee. So all that to be said is if you see that Jim is passing around or Shelley's passing around a revised Woodlands Division budget, the main item that we are going to be looking at adjusting is going to be the GRP rates. So. And feel free to stop me at any point in time as we go through. So like I said, this is usually one of the last slides that you see towards the end of the budget, but now it's the first one. So some of the main takeaways. The Woodlands used to grow from roughly 75 through 2010-ish to 15-ish or so. We saw a lot of water demand, sewer demand increasing. For the last few years, we have not seen an increase in water or sewer demands. We've actually seen where they're flat. So sales are not going up, but expenses are. So the surface water to groundwater blend ratio we're proposing is 65% groundwater to 35% surface water. We are proposing a 5% water and wastewater increase. One of the reasons for that increase is, of course, what we've been talking about quite a bit for the last few years, the ongoing renewal of the aging water and wastewater systems. And we are proposing to increase the R&R funding by $500,000 this year. And basically that takes it from, I think about 6 million up to about 6.5 million. That is a practice that we are looking to do every year to slowly increase the R&R funding to handle some of these long-term maintenance items we have. So to start with, you're going to see on your screen is the proposed wholesale water rates as well as the previous 5 years. So what we wanted to show here is you'll see the 5 years, you'll see the cost increase, what the rate was, the cost increase, and then the percentage increase for each of those 5 years. On the far right, you'll see the proposed FY22 rate, which is a 5% increase, or 11 cents per 1,000 gallons for the water rate. On the wastewater side, same setup. What you'll see proposed FY22 is a 5% increase, or 23 cents per 1,000 gallons. The last slide on the rates is going to be the GRP rates. So you'll see 3 rates here, but just a reminder, the item in the light blue line at the bottom on the far right that's underlined in bold, that is the GRP fee, I think surface water conversion fee, also known as the blended fee. Right now, that is $3.07. However, if the GRP review committee does reduce their rate by 4 cents, then that rate is expected to go down to $3.03. So from this point, everything else in the budget is a lot of stuff you've seen before, high-level summary items of the budget. I'm more than happy to go through it with y'all, or if you'd like, I can answer any questions, or we can stop there.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris?
This is Director Martin. It would appear that the Woodlands Division is being allocated additional full-time equivalents, FTEs. Those are portions of full-time jobs, I guess it is. And it appears to have gone up rather significantly this year. Can you explain why that's happened and your methodology for making that allocation?
Certainly, I'll definitely try my best. And I know Ron and Ed are a little bit more in tune, but I'll cover the basis of it. If you want to get to some calculations, that's a longer conversation. But you will see roughly just over a $600,000 increase in the salaries, benefits, and salaries, wages, and benefits. And actually, based on that, let me get to that slide so we can. Okay. So what you're seeing on the screen, basically the second row of words, salaries, wages, and employee benefits, look to the middle, 7 million, on the far right, roughly 7.7 million. There's 3 items. The first is a 9% increase in healthcare benefits as part of the increased cost. The second is, as we have every year, there is a proposed 3.5% merit, market adjustment, and promotion increase for staff in there. The last item is an increase in allocated staff by 1.3 FTEs. And as Mr. Martin said, it's not actually 1.3 people, one full position. It's actually little bits and pieces of a bunch of different positions. So one of the main ones is the accounting department. The accounting department did an audit of their services they provide, the expenses, the POs cut, so on and so forth, the last few years. And what they came up and looking at that was that the Woodlands Division was basically getting a bargain. They were actually using more staff in the Woodlands than the budget had showed. So what they did was they added half an FTE to the accounting staff directly responsible for the Woodlands. The other item that's in there is senior management staff, increased by right at 0.4 FTEs. It's 0.367. Some of that is, as you know, on the call right now is you have Ron, who's leaving the River Authority, then you have Ed, who's coming in. So there's an overlap there, cost for some of that. Some of the more of the charge was the River Authority is going to have a director of legal services. It is another senior management position that will oversee, and it's basically in-house legal for some items. The last bigger one, then you have bits and pieces of purchasing's increased, SCADA has increased a little bit based off of the services they provide. But one of the other notable increases is, excuse me, last year the utility enterprise was created. It's a brief reminder, that is the management staff that oversees the Woodlands and GRP divisions that myself and Amanda and Matt are a part of. And so when that was originally created, it was estimated at a 50-50 split. So half my time went to GRP, half of it went to the Woodlands. After going through a year of the utility enterprise, the managers, the majority of the managers, including myself, were spending more time on Woodlands type items. So what I've done this year is in the staffing budget, I've allocated 60% instead of 50% of the management time to the Woodlands instead of GRP. So GRP went down to 40, Woodlands went up to 60. So cost savings over there in some case, increase back in the Woodlands. And those are the main items that are causing the increase in salaries, wages, and benefits.
Well, this is Director Martin. As you might imagine, if you're sitting on this side of the fence, you'd be concerned about the cost shifting that's going on from GRP basically to Woodlands Division, or in cases of legal, which sounds like it might be attributable to if not wholly, at least substantially to the GRP division. But so rather than to continue this discussion online, what I would suggest and ask for is that whoever's got this information, I would assume it comes from your accounting department, to provide a breakdown and justification for each of these increases that has occurred from last year to this year, so that we can better understand and get a better look at perhaps mostly what you've just described.
Not a problem. I will get that information gathered and I will get it provided to Jim when we can get it together, and then Jim can send it on from there.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Chris or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to the attorney's report. Brian?
This is Brian. Thank you, Roland. Just brief update on the legislative session. We're down to the last 2 weeks of the session, so it's pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week there at the Capitol until the session ends at the end of May. A lot of activity in terms of the weeding out process for the bills. I think I mentioned last month that only around 15% of bills that are introduced ultimately get passed. So if there are particular bills that any directors are interested in, I would encourage you again to take a look at that bill tracker that was provided before, I believe it was last month's round of meetings, and click on the hyperlink that's on the bill tracker, and it will take you to the Texas Legislature Online, which has a real-time update feature on the website, so you can see if the bill has stalled out in committee, if it's made it through a hearing, if it's gone to the floor for a vote, if it's cleared the other chamber, if it's on the governor's desk for signature, if it's been signed, etc. So, encourage you to take a look at that if there are particular bills that you are interested in. One bill I have been pointing out to boards that has already passed is House Bill 1118 relating to cybersecurity training. That bill provided some much needed clarification in the requirements for who has to actually complete the training. You'll recall from when the original legislation was passed in 2019, the language of the bill was not entirely clear, but did seem to indicate that, and common sense would indicate that if you, a director or other potentially be an individual subject to the bill, if you do not have access to a local government system or database that would be at risk of a cybersecurity threat, then you should not have to complete the training. Unfortunately, the Texas Department of Information Resources, the entity that was tasked with implementing the bill after the last session, took an extremely broad interpretation of the bill that essentially required anyone associated with the government entity, be it an employee, an elected official, et cetera, to complete the training, regardless of whether they had any access to a system that would be at risk of a cybersecurity threat. So that's why all of our MUD directors for the last year or so have had to comply with this requirement. And I can't tell you the number of times I've got the question of, I don't have any access to any computer system of the district. Why am I doing this? The answer is, I don't know. But thankfully, the legislature did essentially override the interpretation of the Department of Information Resources this session with House Bill 1118. It did provide clarity on who must comply. It now provides that in this case, a MUD director that has access to a local government computer system or database that uses that computer system or database to perform at least 25% of their duties are required to complete the training. Now, for the lion's share of MUD districts, directors aren't going to have to complete the training. In the Woodlands, it's a little bit unique. You do have staff, as you know. Staff will, of course, still be subject to the compliance requirements and will take the training each year. Directors, it's a little bit of a gray area. As you know, you do have access to a Google Drive that's maintained by the district to access documentation electronically, board packets, supplemental materials, et cetera. And we do the Zoom meetings that Maureen manages. So it's a bit of a gray area as to whether or not you're actually using a district computer system or database for 25% of your duties. I think the safest approach is to recommend that when in doubt, go ahead and complete the training and provide the evidence of completion to Shelley for your records. But if a director is confident that they are not using a local government computer system or database to perform 25% of their duties, then you don't need to complete it. And it's really a facts and circumstances consideration for each director. At the end of the day, this cybersecurity training requirement is director-based. It's not district-based. So directors have a compliance requirement, not the district itself, and as well as employees have a compliance requirement. So, if you are confident that you do not meet that 25% threshold, then you would need to complete that training this year or in future years. So it's not a perfect solution, but it's miles better than what we had before. Happy to answer any questions about House Bill 1118 if you have them. Otherwise, that will conclude my attorney's report for today.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Hearing none, we'll move on to number 12. Consider an act on providing storm drain markers to reduce waterway pollutants for community volunteer projects. Jim or Mike? Jim?
Excuse me. Over the years, the MUDs have participated in this sort of community volunteer programs, primarily Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and groups like that. We are seeing an increase in the number of volunteers and community organizations that want to participate in this event. Many of those are coming to the Environmental Services Division in the township. So we just wanted to formally get on record that we're recommending that each MUD allocate $1,000 a year for providing markers and adhesive to groups to install these markers on storm drains in your mud district. So we're just requesting that you approve up to $1,000 a year be expended from your storm sewer maintenance budget on this.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any discussion on this? If not, is there a motion to approve the $1,000 expenditure?
This is Larry. So move.
And a second?
This is Alton, second.
We'll vote on it. Alan?
Aye.
Alton?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland, aye. Motion passes. Number 13, consider an act on resolution regarding the desired future conditions for aquifer management in Montgomery County.
In your packet is a resolution that the same document essentially was presented to the Woodlands Water Agency trustees last week. And this is a carryover in some regards from the prior month. We had several MUDs have an agenda item to pass a resolution along this topic. And we asked that they pause that until we had an opportunity to draft something that maybe all of our MUDs could support, the trustees could support, and maybe MUD districts in our other MUD districts in our community. So what is in your packet is the final draft of that document. And we are recommending that you approve that or support that. And it would be submitted on to the Lone Star Groundwater District in their public comment period on DFCs.
Okay, do we have any questions or discussion on this resolution? If not, any discussion? If not, do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Director Martin, so moved.
And a second?
It's Allen, so moved.
Okay, we'll vote on it. Alan?
Aye.
Alton?
Aye.
Larry?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And this is Roland, aye. Motion carries. Number 14, receive an act on staff update regarding status of Texas Water Development Board financial assistance application for funding assistance on Bear Branch improvement concept.
If I could, I'll make just a couple of opening remarks and then we can get into more detail. As you know, that the Texas Water Development Board did approve, favorably acted on our application. I have presented, can I share the screen, Maureen? Thank you. This document that's on the screen, this drawing, shows that we in visiting with LJA and our drainage engineer, we have, I guess, firmly expanded what we're proposing to do up along Panther Branch. If you're following my marker in that area, and this will benefit the residents of Lake Mist or Misty Cove, Misty Lake, Lake Mist Circle in that area who have received flooding several times over the years, get the streets become inundated during major rain events. As a matter of fact, this was presented, this is MUD 7. It was presented to the MUD 7 board yesterday for a potential funding partner in this. And coincidentally, these residents had called our office yesterday or day before about high water in their backyard. So it kind of fit together. And so MUD 7 did respond favorably to potentially being a funding partner. They're wanting some more details. And then down here is MUD 47, who we presented it last month to their group, and they responded favorably, and again favorably yesterday, wanting to know, well, how much. So I guess to sum up, since we now have the approval with the Texas Water Development Board, we're going to be fine-tuning what MUD 7 might participate, to what degree, what MUD 47 might participate, looking to see if there's any logical other participants along Bear Branch as far as our MUD districts. And we'll be talking more detail to the township at the One Water Task Force meeting next week. And I know my discussions with Bruce Reeser, he feels strongly that the county should be a participant in this also, So I guess over the next month or so, we're going to be fine tuning our request for funding partners. And the good news is the application went through and we have more work to do to get this finalized and get it implemented. Paul, for your information, the neighborhood meetings are coming together with PowerPoint. We'll be holding separate meetings for the Shadow Point neighborhood, the Quiet Oak neighborhood, Lake Miss neighborhood, and then of course the Capstone neighborhood. So still a lot of work to do, but I guess the good news is that we did get support. And also I've got a meeting set up Friday with the Howard Hughes Corporation and Dan Cokhurst to talk about a path forward to getting these detention areas, which this property is owned by the Howard Hughes Corporation. We'll need that property for the detention. So still a lot of work to do, but things have kind of come together here in the last month.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Ms. Rowland, question for you, Jim. In regard, you mentioned Bruce said that the county should be a participant. Did he? Was he referring to the county, or were you referring there to the township as a participant?
He was referring to Montgomery County.
Okay.
He was going to reach out to Keogh, Mark Keogh.
Okay. Did he say anything about the township being a?
Well, they have responded favorably to my suggestion that this will benefit the community, especially fire department, emergency services, and the Woodlands Township is the fire department. So I did get a favorable response. We just need to kind of work through the details.
Okay. And then one last question I have is what kind of a timeline do you foresee as far as having these items on the MUD agendas to approve actual dollars?
I'm hoping next month to have it on MUD agenda, on MUD 47 and MUD 7.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Jim?
Director Martin.
Go ahead, Paul.
Jim, you mentioned up on Panther Creek, there's some additional work added. How much money was added?
No money. We fine-tuned the work and the projections, and we can do that without adding anything to the application.
Okay, and the detention ponds, it says to be cleared. Does that mean there's no pond there now, but that property is owned by the Hughes Corporation, and so we have to try to have a right to use it, or what?
Yes, we hope to get it deeded to the MUD District or to the San Jacinto River Authority for use as a detention pond. It is currently floodplain property that's not developable.
Okay. Good. So just to remind the board that while MUD 67 has been taking the lead on this, we have also been taking the lead on the expenses. So when we talk about cost share, there's additional costs that are not reflected in that 11,300,000. For example, all of the costs that the MUD 67 has directly incurred over the years through LGA primarily and staff time. And I don't know what that number is, but I'd be surprised if it's less than 150,000 or more. And am I off base on that number, Jim?
No, you're probably in the ballpark.
Okay, and then as we discussed the last time we brought up this issue to bring it forward for approval at the state level, we talked about the additional costs that we would have to, MUD 67 would have to incur to float these bond issues. And that's in the order of $500,000 or $600,000, as I recall. So those costs wouldn't directly pass to these partners unless we make it part of the agreement, it seems to me. And then lastly, the ongoing risk of who accepts responsibility for future changes and future growth in the project that we may not know about today.
Okay, Jim, any comment on that?
I don't anticipate any growth. I mean, I think we have a pretty solid estimate that's conservative. You know, that I could come back to haunt me, that statement, but I've reviewed that many times with our consultant, and I feel like that we're on pretty solid ground to be able to complete the project in the estimate that we have. We can work with Brian, you know, forming the interlocal agreements or the agreements with the MUDs if it goes over, trying to determine a cost sharing. If it does go over, we'll certainly pursue that.
Brian, can you weigh in on this?
This is Brian. So, I mean, any of those items are negotiable. I mean, I think, you know, frankly, you know, we're focused on the big issue right now is trying to get the cost sharing dollars on the project, and then we can deal with some of these ancillary items when we get down to the agreement and can negotiate those. But that's not necessarily a focus at this point, because, you know, right now we're trying to round up as many dollars as possible to cost share. You know, we have to figure out what is, at the end of the day, for 67, what is this board's bottom line, red line, for lack of a better term, for a cost participation from other entities before y'all would not move forward. You know, do we? So I think so. Jim kind of knows what bucket he has to, how deep is the bucket he's got to fill.
So it's Director Martin. I'm not trying to get the cart before the horse in terms of smaller amounts of cost, if you will. I just don't want any of us to lose sight of those issues. I guess if you're looking for an upset number, I know I at one time had said, well, if we should get at least 50% participation, but now that we have changed the scope of this program, and now we have other partners involved, and maybe more coming, perhaps we should lower that threshold. I don't know. What's the other director's thoughts on that?
This is Roland. Paul, I think you've got a good point there, and at the same time, if we can get our threshold down, I think we can take into consideration that even though we've taken the lead and expended initial costs with LJ and the studies and whatnot, that it's still, I mean, this project goes right through the heart of MUD 67, and has always been the number one objective of ours is to improve the drainage along the research corridor. So, you know, if we were to take a few more percentage points than some of the other MUDs, I think it'd still be well worth it, because I think, I'm going to just speculate that our benefit is a bit greater than either 7 or 47s.
Jim, would you concur with that?
I would concur with that at this point, yes.
Any other comments, questions?
And just the number of homes that have flooded in the Capstone area and Twinberry area far exceed the number of homes that have flooded in MUD 7 and MUD 47 during these events. So, I mean, that's just one marker that stands out. But I think overall, my perspective is that the MUD 67 tends to benefit more than the other MUDs, the way I see it at this point.
Okay. Then Jim, I believe we don't have anything to act on here.
We do not. Now, I know Adam and Jan are on the line. Are y'all on the line for this topic?
Yes, sir.
Just in case any questions came up about there, we want to make sure that we're in the loop to make sure that going forward, we do have a limited schedule per the Texas Water Development Board. So we just want to make sure that we keep this moving forward so that we can meet their schedule.
On the note of the schedule, I do think that we should do what we can, probably sooner than later, to get the timeline for closing the bonds, make that as maximum as possible, just to allow for negotiation and time to work with other MUDs and other funding entities. And I know I sent copies of the memorandum from the Water Development Board. I think they had a closing date, if I read it correctly, of November the 1st, with up to a 3-month extension. And it would be my recommendation that we work and do what we can to go ahead and get that extension in place sooner than later. But Jan, I would defer to your or Brian's experience in dealing with them on this type of an issue.
This is Jan Bartholomew again. I think Brian and I are going to see what we need to do to get an extension. I personally, the Water Development Board doesn't always offer extensions. Let me first add that. So I'm not sure exactly what is involved with the Water Development Board, but Brian and I are looking into it right now, so that in case we do need board action, or what would be required on behalf of 67, we could be prepared to do that, because we agree we all would like as much time as possible to make sure that we can get all the participants involved. So hopefully we'll have an answer of what that all entails. We just found out about this yesterday. So we're now working to get with the Water Development Board to find out what is required to get a 3-month extension.
Very good.
Thank you, Jan.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, Director Martin. So just talking about the 3 MUDs that have just been recently mentioned, the other 2 MUDs wouldn't have to sell bonds to support this program. They could just put something in their annual budget that they owe a payment to MUD 67. Is that correct?
We can structure it any way we want. I don't know. I think the answer would be, depending on how much they either have in surplus funds or how much they would have to make an annual payment, where that would come from, whether it be from water and sewer revenues or maintenance tax or whatever. Then we could determine for those MUDs whether they would need to sell bonds, or if they could just make an annual payment. And then we'd have to work that into our cash flow.
Yeah, it just seems to me that the more we complicate this, the harder it's going to be to get to the end. And so if we make it easier for the other 2 MUDs, then we've only got ours to deal with. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is Brian and Paul. Yeah, we're early in the discussion process, I think, with MUD 7 and MUD 47. But MUD 47 certainly has some bond proceeds for some rehabilitation work that they sold last year that are funds on hand. And MUD 7 has some as well. I think that the strongest position for MUD 67 would be to receive cash from these districts that would go into escrow, that would also be where you would also place the bond proceeds of your Texas Water Development Board loan, would all go into that escrow, and they would be used to pay the construction contract for this project. Otherwise, you're gonna have to issue bonds for that other amount, and be relying on those other entities, whoever they may be, to make that annual payment. And in worst case scenario, you had to go chase them. Hopefully that would never happen. But if you did, you'd be having to go chase them. But it would be the district that would still be having to make those debt service payments.
Right. No, it sounds like an excellent approach. Yep, I like it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll move back to Jim for the general manager's report.
Okay, a few items to highlight from our trustee meeting. We're still, well, it was just brought up last month that we should have an agenda item to consider hiring a consultant or a professional to help us secure any funds that might be available with the Biden administration American Jobs Plan. So we'll be looking at that. Gave an update on Neil Gaynor's effort to be selected as the San Jacinto River Upper Watershed voting member for that new planning group. But they have now, I think, have 5 applicants, so they'll be interviewing those. There's a HARC update in your packet. Just a quick summary what they're working on. The important thing they're working on now is finalizing the comments to the Lone Star Groundwater District's Phase 2 subsidence study. I think they finalized those and actually submitted them within the last couple of days. And then working with their Science Advisory Committee on where they would recommend the extensometer and additional GPS monitoring stations go in Montgomery County. I am still looking at options for addressing concerns from residents near Slash Pine and residents over near Forest Gate Park regarding the AMI pole installations. In your packet is some additional information on possible relocation cost. We've worked with the township and identified 2 potential sites for relocation, but they need to be vetted more. That would be the Forest Gate Park and Sawmill Park. I did report the Spring Creek or the interlocal agreement regarding additional study in Spring Creek has been executed with the MUDs and City of Humble and MUD 386 and the Harris County Flood Control District. We also had a report from Chris Meeks and his group at the trustee meeting on the preliminary engineering report for the Tin Man improvement. The trustees gave direction to move forward with fine tuning. I think there were 5 vendors and 5 variables for doing the Tin Man exhaust system. They asked the River Authority to narrow that down to no more than 3. And then Chris Meeks also introduced the topic of a additive to the wastewater collection system that might improve the odor. They have information from others that this additive has been successful at reducing odor, and the trustees recommended that the River Authority go forward with those 2 paths. One path of fine tuning the preliminary engineering report recommendation, and the other is applying the odor as a test section as well. In your packet, there's also a Woodlands Water Agency operational efficiency list. Maureen and has put together improvements and operational efficiencies that she and others have implemented over the last several months. So I would encourage you to take a look at those, a big benefit to our group. And we are working on setting up the meeting with TACUS and our attorney and their group to start talking about the reimbursement to the MUDs for the damage. So we're real close in getting that on the table and getting that firmed up as well. That concludes my report, and I am available for questions.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any questions for Jim? If not, we'll move on to the trustees report. Paul, do you have anything to add there?
This is Director Martin. I think Jim's report and the information in the packet is going to cover most of it. For the purposes of that last item that I recommended be put on the agenda for next month for the trustee meeting, I'd like to read exactly what I read to the trustees so that my board, MUD 67, has the benefit of the exact same wording. So if I may, Mr. Chairman, I'll just read that, and then I would ask for your comment when I'm finished. Okay, so it's due to the extreme teamwork of Woodlands water staff during COVID-19, where over 30% of the in-house staff were infected and had to isolate, and voluntarily incentive to move systems and hardware home. And most recently, the outstanding performance by staff during Ice Storm Uri in February 2021, some working 24-hour shifts, and the invaluable service offered all residents. I would like to consider a proclamation of appreciation from the Board of Trustees and a one-time stipend to all full-time and part-time employees not to exceed $700 each. And so that's what I asked to be put on the agenda for next month. And just by way of notice, that's about $19,600, and that's within the budget of salaries. We're under budget on salaries, the three categories of salaries, and so this would be within the budget for the year. So that's what the trustees are going to talk about and hopefully vote on next month.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any comments, questions of Paul, or anything?
This is Alton. I appreciate Paul putting that together. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Paul, just to clarify then, you're saying that these funds would come from the existing budget that we have?
That's correct. It would come out of the Woodlands water budget. It wouldn't affect the MUDs any further than they already have contributed.
Okay, so the action that we would take next month would be to approve just doing that then. Is that what you're saying?
As I understand it, the trustees would take that action, but I'm just, putting this up for discussion at our board level so that I know how to vote. I mean, I have a personal interest, obviously, because I brought it up, but yeah. I just want to make sure I'm not going against the feelings of MUD 67 board. Okay, does that make sense?
I think we all support you, Paul.
All right. Now, this has been on my mind for a couple of months now, and every time I see these people out in the field, and I'm just grateful for the staff and the leadership.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, and that we're going to formalize the action. Okay. Anything else, Paul?
No, that's all for now.
Okay. Then we'll move on to 17. Any matters to be placed on future agenda? Okay. Hearing none, I guess we can stand adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Roland. Thanks, Roland.
Thank you, Roland. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Roland.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye now.